Mr. Jones.
16, Mr. Moderator, 1-6.
Motion carries 74 to 30. Article 17. Article 17, the motion for Article 17, Mr. Norton.
John Norton, 279 Main Street. I move to transfer free cash the sum of $40,000 for the repairs and reconstruction to the stone wall running 700 feet in front of Riverside Cemetery.
We have the motion. Does the Board of Selectmen wish to make a recommendation? Mr. Messeri.
Board of Selectmen unanimously does not recommend. I'm sorry. The Board of Selectmen on a 4-to-1 vote does not recommend.
Does the Finance Committee wish to make a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously does not recommend this.
Mr. Norton.
The reason I proposed this as a citizen petition article, this project is languished. It's my understanding from our former DPW director in several meetings with him since the late 90s. Part of the problem was the state reconstruction project of Route 62 from the Middleton Town line all the way to Wilmington. He felt at the time that they wanted to see what kind of damage was going to be done under that reconstruction. And just to state one thing, which may or may not come up here tonight as a question, the state will not reconstruct or repair stone walls, even though part of the damage may have been caused by them. That was related to me by our town engineer. The only thing the state would do is construct new walls where it was necessary. Last year, this was on the original capital item list at a sum of $36,000. For whatever reason, it was taken off. I'm not sure of the mechanics, and I really don't want to get into it because the former DPW director is retired. This year, there were several proposals put forward to the town engineer in the sums of around $39,500. I rounded it to $40,000 at the time when I had this article presented to the town clerk for certification. That figure now has gone up, well, it's up $4,000 from last year as of the time that I originally had submitted it. Moving west to east on this, I want to show you several slides that caused great concern with this wall. Part of which you can see here in this slide. This is the most westerly point. It abuts the property at the corner of 62 and Swan Pond Road. This is part of the old original entrance. This cemetery, the original part, dates back to somewhere around 1890. As you can see, some of the wall has already started to collapse. Fortunately, this portion is in the old entranceway, so it is not a direct bearing to the public. Moving forward, again, moving west to east, you can begin to see here that a lot of the area behind the wall has already started to cave in, which is allowing erosion from the backside two granite upright pillars is the reference point I make to where the middle of the wall is. That's where the granite stairways go up. It's hard to tell in this particular set of photos, but if you were to look back probably 3 or 4 feet in the older section, there are also burial plots. And there are regulations to keepers of cemeteries, whether they be private or they be public. In this particular instance, the keeper of the cemetery is the town of North Reading because it's a municipal cemetery. Along with the fear of that wall caving outward, it's also going to take the earth behind it, and you also have the potential of burial plot exposures. Again, as you move down the wall, you can begin to see where some of the water has worked its way out. A lot of this, again, in conference meeting with the former DPW director and our current town engineer, they feel a lot of this water movement was due to the compaction process on Route 62. Some of it's natural, the water eroding it from time, but a lot of it was due to the compaction process of the Route 62 construction. And again, this gives you pretty much a full view of the wall from west to east. Again, points of reference where the wall is beginning to move outward. The water is beginning to loosen up. Here you can see some of the older burial plots just up behind it. While some are very old, there are some of those burial plots that are original, but they have had recent burials in them. So again, if that wall moves upward, the earth behind it's going to move, and you're going to expose the potential of exposure to burial plots. In conclusion, this is not only an article of safety, point of reference of safety, it's the point of reference of people that are interred in that cemetery, their relatives and friends that come to visit those that are interred in the cemetery itself. It is my belief that the town needs to keep that cemetery in respectful condition in consideration of those that are interred within. And this article in no way references the work that's done there by DPW. Our Department of Public Works does an excellent job in that cemetery as far as the internal maintenance. This work, a lot of it is beyond the scope of what they can do, and a lot of this work would be done by outside contractors. Thank you.
Mr. Messeri.
Here we are again discussing priorities. We've had a number of discussions of capital, and this was left off purposely by the Board of Selectmen as a priority this year. You heard the town administrator say earlier that next year we'll be implementing one more phase of the cemetery. The following year, we have nothing planned, and this would be a good time to do the repair of the wall or replacement of the wall. The actual cost of doing what really needs to be done to the wall is estimated by a new DPW director is $54,200, not $40,000. So at this point, I would recommend or wish that you would turn down this article.
Mr. Bean.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the one selectman who is in favor of this project. Our board and our town and all you people, we've been trying to keep up the infrastructure. And when I first got on the board 15 years ago, there was a lot that had to be done. My feeling on this issue is, let's do it now before it's totally deteriorated. The fear I would have of putting it off for another year or two is it will get taken off the capital budget again. So I would urge you to go forward. It's 40,000, as you heard Mr. Messeri say. An absolute total fix would be 56,000, that's the estimate. But this 40,000 will bring us to a point where it's not dangerous anymore. We can take care of these bulging areas that are coming out over the sidewalks. I would ask you to approve this. Thank you.
Mrs. Capizotto.
We've already Capizotto, 12 Wade Drive. I'm curious why wasn't, and that cemetery is absolutely beautiful, and I think it deserves our utmost interest in preserving, but why wasn't that wall included in all the other beautiful walls that were constructed along 62, especially in front of private residences? I'm very curious about that. I admire the workmanship is that so beautiful. Why wasn't the cemetery included?
Mr. Norton.
Again, as I stated in my earlier part of the presentation, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts will not repair or reconstruct walls, even though they may have been a partner to the damage of them. The only thing they will do is build brand new walls. And that was stated by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts chief engineer and by the town engineer.
Mrs. Capizotto.
Follow-up is, then why don't we construct a new wall instead of repairing an old wall?
Mr. Norton.
I would venture to say, given the length of that wall at 700 feet, at today's cost, you would probably exceed the figure, and I'm taking a real guess at this, but according to what our town engineer had told me, if you were to tear that wall down and completely reconstruct it, you'd be looking at a figure of somewhere around $400,000.
I beg to ask another question. Why, again, wasn't it included? The walls that were constructed, the new walls that were constructed how many years ago? I know it took a long time to get 62 in the shape that it is. But again, why wasn't the cemetery wall part of the consideration in the reconstruction of 62?
I can only give you the same answer I've given you right along, and it deals with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, their chief engineer, and their rules and regulations on walls. They will not reconstruct or repair, even though they may have been a partner in the damage to the current wall.
How were the walls that were constructed, how were they included in that plan? The walls that were constructed?
Mr. Norton, if we may, I think Mr. O'Leary wants to respond to the question.
During the original planning stages of the Route 62 project, which began years ago, there was a tremendous amount of discussion